to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yantz, and this is episode 39. And this is a special episode where I'm going to talk about the death of Pat Patterson and also AEW, the show that just happened tonight, or today. So stay tuned. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm just going to say AEW show was probably the best show they've done, so watch it. That's a recommend. But we're going to start with Pat Patterson, because he died today, or yesterday, whenever you're watching this, listening to this, at age 79. We don't know if it's from COVID. I hope it's not, but that'll probably be the next shoe that'll drop, is that we'll find out that he died of COVID, but apparently he died of cancer complications. So it's a sad day, because Pat Patterson was a great wrestler, as well as one of the best finish people in the business. And when I say finish people, I mean the person that can come up with the finish of the match, the ending. A lot of the great endings that you've seen were created with Pat Patterson. He had a lot to do with that. But let's just look at some of his career. So he is from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. He debuted in Canada. He wrestled in Portland, Don Owens, Portland, and he was recruited by Mad Dog Vachon. I don't know all the details of this. I'm sure Dave Meltzer is going to do a great write-up on Pat Patterson, and he'll give amazing stories, because he was around at this time. Well, his time was more the 70s, which we'll get to. Then he went to Big Time Wrestling in San Francisco. Now, this is Dave's territory. He loved this, and he worked with, he was hired by Roy Shire, and he worked with Ray Stevens, and they were the Blonde Bombers. He, supposedly he's the first Intercontinental Champion. He's a great worker, really understood things. A lot of us haven't seen his work, because, a lot of it's not even on the network. I was looking on the network, and they don't even have a lot of the boot camp matches that he had with Sergeant Slaughter. Those were like really bloody matches he would have with Sergeant Slaughter, where they would have the boot camp matches. And a lot of those are not on there. It's kind of unfortunate. Unfortunately, the WWE Network has kind of like stopped really adding the older stuff, and is just kind of, I don't know, they're just doing documentaries now, and you get the pay-per-views. As far as I'm concerned, it's a missed opportunity. They have a live channel, and they could program different things in there so that you could leave it on all the time. But when you leave it on all the time, all it is a bunch of like the Total Divas stuff and the Bump and things like that. They don't ever put like old Raws, or if they do old Raws, it's 1993 and 1994, and they don't go any further than that. They don't do anything with ECW. They don't do anything with the territories they own. So it's unfortunate, because we don't get to see his work. But Pat Patterson was a great worker. And he also was one of like Vince McMahon's like go-to guys that, believed it. Bret Hart, always talked about how he really enjoyed working with Pat Patterson, because he would come up with finishes together. He said on Instagram, he said that his match at WrestleMania 12 with Shawn and him, the Iron Man match, that was kind of a tribute to Pat. And Pat was, he was very proud of that match. He said, like, after that match, he was crying. He was so happy with it. He was very good friends. He worked with Rocky Johnson, The Rock's father. And he was one of the people that was instrumental in getting The Rock into WWF at the time. As he told Vince, he said, you got to look at, Rocky Johnson's kid. You got to look at his boy. And they did, and the next thing you knew, he was on, he was getting his tryout match, and, they were off to the races. But he was somebody that, The Rock is always considered one of his allies. One of the stories I heard was when Rock was going to won the title in 1998 at the Survivor Series. The next night, they were going to have him kiss Vince's ass. And they were kind of, unfortunately, there's no other way to say that, but that's what they were going to do. And he was, I don't know if he was literally going to do that, which I just think is, you would have killed his character right there. Or if he was going to figuratively do it. But he was kind of against that, and he said, we don't know what we have with The Rock, let's not kill that. So he was always looking out for The Rock. That's the heat coming on. I've turned everything off, but the heat just wants to come on. It's really cold outside. So when you think of The Rock, Pat Patterson, they're like entwined. Bret Hart, Bret Hart loved, Pat Patterson. Those are his guys. When I think of him, and like I said, one of the best finish guys you'll ever see. A lot of the great finishes, that's Pat. I'm sure he helped come up with WrestleMania 13 and that finish with Steve Austin and Bret. I'm sure he helped come up with the Hell in a Cell, the first Hell in a Cell with Shawn and Taker. I'm sure he helped come up with the Owen versus Bret in the cage, which to me is one of the best cage matches you'll ever see. And they used the escape the cage, and it didn't feel like it didn't work in this situation. They made it work. Bret was so good at making things just work around the ring and things like that. And he loved Chris Jericho credited in his book Pat Patterson with helping him get the little things under control so he could become an even better worker. So Pat has helped so many guys. To me, he is always a part of WWE. He is just part of that culture. He's famously, supposedly, he's the guy that came up with the Royal Rumble. I mean, we could talk for hours about it. I mean, I don't know enough about his match work because it's like hidden. But Ray Stevens and him, they had their great feud. The Cow Palace. Good stuff. He was, what a great man. And it's sorry. I'm sad that we lost him. They've always associated him with being the person who was crowned the first Intercontinental Champion at the alleged tournament in Rio de Janeiro, except for no one has ever really seen these matches. So it's kind of like an inside joke, but look at all the places he went to. Florida, Big Time Wrestling, America, AWA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, World Wrestling Federation, everywhere. But his feud with Ray Stevens and Pat, when Pat Patterson turned heel, that was a big deal. And I'm sure Dave Meltzer will talk all about what an impact that had on him as a child, or as somebody watching that as it unfolded. So it's a sad day that we lost him, but he will not be forgotten. And then you go back to in the Attitude Era, he was one of the stooges of Vince McMahon. Now looking back at what a great mind he was and what a great wrestler, I kind of feel bad for laughing at him. I'm like, he was better than that. He didn't need that, And I could tell he was like kind of a little bit against that. Most people probably remember him as the Stooges. I choose not to remember him as that. Those are great stuff, but he was a great wrestler, and he was a great wrestling mind. That's what I'll remember about Pat Patterson. The Stooges stuff was fun and everything, but he was a secondary character. To me, he was integral with all the great matches. I don't want to remember him for evening gown matches and stupid stuff like that. I want to remember him as the guy that helped The Rock, that helped Bret, that helped Shawn, the guy that just, helped those guys get a break and saw the talent in them. He was one of the first, I think he was one of the first openly gay wrestlers. He came out with it on Legends House. I mean, everyone knew about it. He legally changed his name to Pat Patterson in 2008. But he will be missed, but he will not be forgotten. And, yeah. Just remember him. Don't remember him as a stooge. Those are great, funny things. Remember as a draw, in wrestling, and as one of the great minds. And with that, when I come back, we will talk about AEW and their pay-per-view level show. Winter is coming. AEW. I'm only going to say this once. Spoilers. This was an awesome show. This, to me, was the best AEW show. From top to bottom, everything worked, everything, built to something. It was great. This was the best show they have done in AEW, and they should be so proud of it. And I hope they get like a 1.5, a 2 even, because they deserve it. They worked hard, and anyone that watched this show, I don't think they're going to come back from it disappointed, because it delivered. They delivered. They delivered on all fronts, and I commend them, and I say thank you, thank you, thank you. As I said, spoilers. So let's start with the beginning of the show. So we had the special Winter is Coming opening, which was cool. We'll always remember this as the Winter is Coming AEW show. Great stuff. So we had like the blue, the light blue background. Anyone that's watched Game of Thrones or knows anything about Game of Thrones knows the winter is coming, and this was all like based off of that. All the advertising was kind of like taken from the Game of Thrones look, and it was great. I liked it. They started off with the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal, and that was ended up winning by MJF and Orange Cassidy. Won, so they will fight next week to decide who is going to get the ring. Now, it'll be interesting. If MJF gets the ring, he'll have 2 rings. If Orange Cassidy gets it, it'll be something for him. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about it. So they had 20 competitors in there. I'm not going to go through all of the thing. It came down to like Jungle Boy and Guevara, and they were fighting, and then MJF eliminated both of them. Jungle Boy had a great showing here, and then it was MJF and Wardlow, and they were stuck when they were going to take on Cassidy, and Cassidy was kind of like laid out, and they were just kind of like taking their time with him. But Cassidy was able to escape. He hit the orange punch on both, and he allowed him to eliminate Wardlow. The best friends came out to celebrate, so it's going to be MJF and Cassidy. I like this. This is a good battle royal. It means something. It leads to something. Who's going to get this diamond ring? I love Orange Cassidy's character. I know a lot of people don't like him, but a lot of people love that character. And, he's kind of grown on me. MJF, this is another thing for him. So this might lead to another, feud. The next match we had was Chris Jericho with Jake Hager and Santana and Ortiz versus Frankie Kazarian. They had a good match. Chris Jericho won. Jericho fought out of an unprettier, and then he went for a code breaker, but Kazarian turned it into the walls of Jericho, and Jericho was able to resist tapping, and then MJF ran out with a towel, and he was echoing his relationship with Cody. Remember a year ago, but Sammy, pulled the towel from his hands, and Kazarian and Jericho exchanged cradles until Jericho landed the Judas effect, and he got the 1, 2, 3. The inner circle was about to celebrate. Guevara started, pushing MJF, and things got heated. And Jericho grabs the microphone and he told everyone, "You better shut up, and knock it off." And he told the whole group, he said, "You guys got 1 week to decide if you guys can work together as a team, or we're gonna break up forever." So that's good. We've got something to look forward to next week. Will the inner circle break up? I think it's too soon to break them up, and I kind of like what Jericho said. Maybe they'll never break them up. So this is an interesting little twist. Maybe they will break them up. Maybe this is, it's been a year. Who knows? I think they're going to stay together, though. I think the thing that could happen is somebody kicks somebody out. Somebody's getting kicked out, maybe. We had the Young Bucks. They were interviewed by Alex Marvez about their upcoming match with Hybrid 2. And they said that if the TH2 can beat them next week, they get a shot at the AEW Tag Team Championships. And then the Acclaimed came out, and they made their first, this is their first Dynamite appearance. I think they've been on After Dark. And Master Caster rapped about the Bucks, and then they shoved them and attacked the Bucks. And then SU showed up and chased them off. We had now Britt Baker, DMD with Rebel versus Layla Hirsch. We had a nice little, promo here. This was a nice little match they had. And Britt Baker won, defeating Layla Hirsch. Not too much happened here. Hirsch climbed the ropes, but we had Rebel was distracting, which gave Baker, Baker had enough time to push Hirsch into the turnbuckle, and then the mandible, the claw that she has for the submission. And then after the match, Thunder Rosa ran in and attacked Baker, and they had a big fight until officials came in to break it up. And then Hirsch hit a bicycle kick. Where am I? Yeah. And then Rose, broke free. The agents, I thought it was Abaddon, but it wasn't Abaddon. It was, Thunder Rosa. So we got Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker. So that should be good. Then we had a video package, and then it was Cody Rhodes with Arn Anderson and Darby Allin versus Team Taz. And we had Darby Allin, he was like, a selling machine for Hobbs. They bumped all over the place. This made, Hobbs look more like a monster. Cody Rhodes and Darby, they defeated Team Taz. They had, let's get to the finish here. So, Allin, he reached, they ran in with, what am I looking at here? Yeah, so Cody landed his drop down, right hand, and then he hit the cutter, and then but then, Allin made the blind tag, and he landed the coffin drop on Starks for the pinfall. Ricky Starks is going to be really good. I keep saying that. I think Hobbs is going to be really good. They've got such good young talent that they're crafting, and they're not killing them. They're building them up. So they're going to mean something when they do get to be the stars. Then we had Team Taz beat down all of them. And then Dustin Rhodes came out. And then he got beat up by Team Taz. And then Brian Gage ran out and he laid out, and then Dustin was laid out with like an F5. But he did an F5 where he jumps. It's kind of cool how he does the F5. Then he did an F5 on Cody, and Hobbs was about to hit him with the FTW championship, and the lights went out. And lo and behold, we were taken to this video package. It looked like something Winter is Coming / Game of Thrones. And then popped up the name Sting. And everyone knew, as soon as I saw the lights go, I was like, oh, this is probably Sting. And it was. Sting came out with the crow face paint, and it was so cool to hear Tony Schiavone say, "It's Sting!" It's been 20 years since he's gotten to say anything for Sting, and he's always been like the Sting guy. And so Sting came out. He stared down. Everything stopped. It was a big moment. JR sold it huge. Tony Schiavone sold it huge. It was a huge moment. It was like this huge legend coming down. It's the way he should have been treated. They kind of treated him at the start like this in WWE, but then they lost it like they always do. So Sting stared down Arn. He stared down Cody and Darby. And they had, at one point, Cody, when he was staring down Cody, the announcers were talking about how he was his favorite, Cody's favorite wrestler growing up was Sting. It was so cool. And then he made, he did the woo, the woo call. I don't know how, and then some people call it the crow call. Is that what we call it? It was really cool. Really cool, surprise. We knew he was probably coming, but nobody knew when he was coming. But when those lights came out, and the fans reacted huge, and it was announced that Sting has signed a multi-year contract with AEW, so he's probably going to do some matches there. It's the right thing. WWE never treated him well, not the way he should have been treated. I mean, they did put him in their Hall of Fame, but they didn't use him the way he needed to be used. So Sting is in AEW, and I'm very excited. Then we had, they took us to a preview of next week, Dustin Rhodes versus Preston 10 Vance, FDR versus the Varsity Blondes, Young Bucks versus Hybrid 2, Lance Archer and the Lucha Brothers versus Eddie Kingston and the Butcher and the Blade, Abaddon in action, and Sting speaking for the first time. And that is going to draw some ratings. So not only did they get great ratings probably tonight, they're going to probably get even bigger. They're going to get just as good ratings next week. So everybody's joking on the internet saying, is Vince going to bring back The Undertaker for NXT to just say bye? And it's like, yeah, but he never worked there. Hikaru Shida was interviewed by Alex Marvez about Abaddon. So that's we're got to be leading to that. Abaddon's really good. I'm excited to see that. Then we had Moxley do a promo. He said he's excited about how far he has come in AEW, and he said that they've been on a collision course as the two best wrestlers in the world, and he said the stakes couldn't be any higher. It was a really good promo. And now we come to winter is coming, and it is here. Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley to win the AEW World Championship. I'm not going to go in this blow by blow, but they had a pay-per-view style match. It was long, it was cool, and they did something really cool this time where they kind of saved up the breaks so that they could have longer breaks in between. Had more breaks in between other matches so that this could be a longer break so that we didn't have as many commercials, interruptions. This was good. We had the V-Trigger. We had, the Cry's Wrath. We had the Paradigm Shift. This was a hard-hitting match. This was good. This was pay-per-view quality match, and they gave it to you on free television. They deserve huge ratings for this. They delivered. This was not something that they had to do, but this was great. And this is something WWE would never do. They would never give you this kind of a show on there. Not like this. Maybe you'd get like the Sting and those surprises, but you wouldn't get the pay-per-view quality match. We had the V-Trigger, we had the the Slingshot V-Trigger, or the Rainmaker V-Trigger. The match kind of got, at one point, so he nailed, he had the V-Trigger, and then he hit the Tiger Driver 98. It was a 2. We got more knee strikes from Omega. At one point, they put 2 chairs in there, and they just started slapping each other, and then they, some pretty, hard hitting, some really hard shots. Omega went for the one winged egg, but, he couldn't get it, so he nailed the Cry's Wrath. This was it was a near fall. He gets up. Moxley sent, they have like the ringside heaters, but it's so cold out there. And that's where He hit the paradigm shift, and the officials all came out and they kind of played it like, he was hurt. And then we had Callis out there, and he's like, he's hurt, and at one point, and Moxley decks him, but Omega grabs the microphone and he hits Moxley right over the head and busts him completely open. And then he's really bloody, and then Omega nailed like multiple V-tricks. He hit several V. He had one, he had two, then he had another one, and they were like really stiff. And then he hit the one-winged angel, 1, 2, 3. We have a new champion, and it's Kenny Omega. Everyone was complaining a year ago that, Omega wasn't being used well. I was like, be patient. He's going to get there, and now we're there. And he's a heel, and it's great. And Omega and Callis were like all in on it, and they ran to the back, and, Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and Excalibur were all like disgusted with how he won the title, and they showed him running backstage, and Tony Khan was yelling at him like, what was that? And all the wrestlers were all yelling at him, and Alex Marvez catches up to them, and Callis says that they can find out on Tuesday on Access. So Omega is going to be on Impact show. This is a cool little thing. It's going to get me to watch, so it works. Eddie Kingston ran out at the very end, and he taunted him. He was making fun of Moxley, and he said that he wants Lance Archer now. And then they showed a close up of Moxley's bloody head and that was it. And they would never do that in WWE. They would never do blood on TV. They would never do... This was everything WWE would not do. So it makes them different. And they did the title change, and they did an angle. I mean, it was kind of similar to how Daniel Bryan won the title from AJ Styles, but that came out of nowhere. This was built up. So it's going to mean a lot more. It didn't just it wasn't a whim like, oh, let's change the title now. So this was really good. I loved this show. I thought this was a really good show. Omega is now the champion, and now he's going to go to Impact. So it's going to make people watch that show. Sting is now there, and he gives them a marketing. He gives them a marketing character, because Sting sells a lot of merchandise, and they only need one legend. It's him. That's all they need. They don't need, they're not doing what TNA did, not Impact, TNA, when they brought in Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and they had all these old guys, and we've just got Sting. He's the super legend. We don't need any more, and it's good. And the way he came out, it meant something. It was special. I thought this was an A+ show, top to bottom. Good stuff. Everything built to something, and they set up everything for next week, which WWE never does. They have a big show, and then they set up nothing for next week. Maybe they'll set up a pay-per-view. This was all planned out, really good. They should be proud of themselves. A+, really good work. Good surprise with Sting. Omega is champion. Abaddon, the way they're building, they're just building all these characters. Ricky Starks, you can tell that guy's going to be good. Will Hobbs, he's going to be good. These guys are going to be good. Darby Allin, these guys are just getting started. The young talent are here. MJF, this is where the young talent are. This is where this company's going. Hangman Page, he'll probably be the man to defeat Kenny Omega. This was good stuff. I am so happy. They delivered. And next week is going to be even better. So they're off to the races. Great job, AEW. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. Try and watch some of Pat Patterson. Let's remember him as the mind he was and the wrestler he was. And with that, I don't have much left to say. I just want to say thank you for listening. And I will see you next time on the DMF.